Forget the presidential race. Forget the U.S.-Russia clash over Syria. Forget China's military buildup. Forget, if you can, for just a moment, anyone named Kardashian. Because today, we're delving deep into the most serious issue facing our planet. Cow farts. And how to trap them in backpacks. Worn by cows. I'm Steve Green along with Scott Ott and Bill Whittle, and this is your right angle on the multi-million-dollar effort to devise a perfect bovine fart-trapping backpack, brought to you with pride by the paying members of BillWhittle.com.
Yes, we couldn't be prouder.
I was going to keep a straight face for this one, but Bill, you busted me already. All right, gentlemen, according to a Bloomberg report this week, enteric fermentation, that is to say, gases released from either end of a domesticated ungulate, accounts for 29% of all U.S. agricultural emissions and nearly a quarter of all methane emissions in the United States. Livestock manure accounts for a further 8% of U.S. methane emissions, and that's something to keep in mind the next time you step in something. Well, here is science to the rescue. There it is, gents. Gaze at that picture. The Argentina Institute of Agricultural Technology's methane backpack, an ingenious mix of elegance and function. Now, you should know that in 2015, there were approximately 98.4 million domestic cows in the United States. Bill, am I correct in predicting that what this country needs to capture all of that energy is an Apollo-scale program to manufacture, by the end of this decade, enough fart-trapping backpacks to safely power a man to the moon and then return him safely to Earth?
Steve, America has a cow flatulence gap, and we cannot allow the Soviets to take advantage of this leap in technology. We've got to close this flatulence gap, and we got to close it now. Boy, what do you say? I used to think that the Apollo 11 moon landing was the high point of human civilization, but then I saw that picture and I certainly changed my mind as I was weeping with the progress of humanity. There's something remotely to this. Again, I think it's like everything else, completely overblown. Turns out, if you'll pardon the expression, it turns out that methane is actually a considerably higher driver of forcing warming than carbon dioxide is. Many times more forcing than carbon dioxide is, which still, in my opinion, means essentially nothing. I will say that having spent a little bit of time in agricultural areas in Chino, California, there's an airport in Chino, and usually you have to put oxygen on when you go higher in an airplane. But when you land in Chino, you probably want to get that oxygen on by 6,000 feet, because by the time you get on the ground in Chino, surrounded by those cow pastures, oh boy.
That's called the smell of money, my brother.
I guess it is. It's called the smell of the Clinton campaign, but we digress. So seriously, I don't think that cows were ever really quite meant to live under those kind of conditions, and those cattle yards down there are just mud soaked in urine and feces and all the rest, and it's not pleasant. But you have to ask yourself if this isn't one of these plans to sell 94 million cow exhaust, cow catalytic converters is the term I'm looking for.
Catalytic? You don't have to say cow.
Catalytic converters. Again, if the sea level rise, if New York was again underwater as we were told it would be in 2015, I might be a little more concerned about this, but it isn't, so I'm not.
All right. Scott, Bill raises a good point here, though. How is it that Argentina, of all places, has managed to leapfrog the United States in fart-trapping technology?
Well, see, that was the thing that fascinated me, because I'm assuming with Argentina there must be significant government money behind all this. And I'm also, partially assuming here that the whole thing is a scam and somebody just made that picture with Photoshop and put it on the internet. Because that is one of the most ridiculous things. When you consider the size of these herds and how many cows are, on an individual farm or ranch or these factory farms, so-called, the idea that every one of them would be walking around with a backpack on, it's just ridiculous. And of course, once PETA gets a hold of this, it's all over. So although they'll be torn, because what they'll want, PETA will be torn between it's saying, hey, unburden these cattle, get this backpack off their backs and this tube out of their, tracts. And but they'll also be thinking, hey, wait a minute, like a $7 tax on a hamburger because of, we want to be able to reduce the amount of methane in the world may be a good idea. My guess is that this project is really just is a measurement tool rather than, what do they call that when they put those scrubbers on coal? It's not a remediation device. It would be my guess about this. And I do expect that there will be numerous applications for federal grants in the United States as soon as this episode goes out. All of the scientists at universities who watch our show will be applying for grants with our own federal government.
Can we not fly drones with burning matches attached to their tops through these fields and accomplish the same thing for less money, and do it in a much more awesome way?
Why not just keep the cattle in a dome stadium kind of thing with just one tube coming out of the top of it and then going directly into Barack Obama's limousine?
Logan's Run for cows, huge dome cities.
That's right. Which one of you geniuses talked about individual pilot lights for the cow?
Steve is me. Sorry. Listen, Bill, Scott, both of you guys kind of hinted at something that actually does concern me. I'm an animal lover. I really am. And I see the conditions at these
They're
places.
Delicious.
We've got Greeley, a town a little ways north of us, that is just like Chino. And I think the city motto is, you get used to the smell. And
that's
the conditions are just horrible. And now, in addition to that, we want to strap these things onto cattle and insert hoses. Is that sane, Bill?
No, it's not sane, and that's why it's being done. The whole world has gone completely barking mad. I'm with you in terms of being an animal lover too, and I'm an animal lover and an animal eater. And I guess it's just a strange line to walk. But the line I walk is, these animals were raised for food, but that doesn't mean they have to live like.
That's right.
They're can't say like animals. Cows that have never been outdoors.
People in third world countries, how about that?
Yeah, cows that have never been outdoors, chickens that have never seen the sun, that are just in boxes as big as they are. That's just wrong. Yeah. And I think it makes the food worse too. But you can be a carnivore and have some ethics, and I think these animals certainly deserve a better life, even if their destination may not be perhaps what they wanted. Although we do have to say, don't we, that there's never been a chicken or a cow in the wild that ever died of old age peacefully at its sleep. So
that and all that said, Steve, we're always told that it's man-made sources of global warming. When you think about not just the domesticated cattle, but think about all the other creatures that are walking around on Earth without the, they don't have the genteel manners that we have been raised in, so they don't control the effluent from either end. And it just gets to the absurdity of being able to control for these factors. Somehow if we stopped eating meat, there wouldn't be so many cows. Well, there's still billions of other creatures around Earth, and somehow the Earth has managed to survive all these years by having essentially a closed environment that recirculates and processes all this stuff that comes out. I mean, I forget what the figure is, but the gas that simply emanates, and oil that emanates from the bottom of the ocean, like stuff just comes out of the floor of the sea all the time, and we're concerned about oil spills, for example. So I just think it's another highlighting the absurdity of it all. And someday we may come to our senses, but the smart money's not on that.
Yeah, and it makes me.
I want to put.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I just want to put my money into cattle futures. You know what I mean? Future cattle futures. That's where I want to be.
Go. Oh boy, folks! It took 8 years, but you've finally seen the softer side of Bill Whittle. Look, I looked into this for you, and I'm being serious now. One bovine backpack traps enough methane to power one refrigerator, but would only provide enough energy to cool that fridge by 2 to 6 degrees. That's according to the people who invented these things at INTA down in Argentina. And by the way, that's if we had fridges that ran on methane, which outside of some deeply serious survivalists, we don't have. And then there's the energy and the resources it takes to manufacture these contraptions, to maintain them, to safely harvest and transport the methane. It's kind of insane, the savings that you don't generate. And the real kicker, according to a 2014 report by Dr. Tom Sheehan, he concluded that as a minor part of our atmosphere, even with 1 billion gassy bovines, this is a quote, methane is irrelevant as a greenhouse gas. So you know what, folks, if you want a cheap source of plentiful energy, if you want to save the planet and stop sending trillions of dollars to the Middle East, well, don't stick a tube up a cow's rear end. Just kiss a nuclear power plant and give an American fracker a big old hug, all right? And that is the right angle on the latest hot air from Bloomberg, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks to them for their sponsorship, and thanks to you for watching. We'll see you next time.